The Lilamrita is the generally accepted Lilamrita of ISKCON, the main biography of Srila Prabhupada's life and teachings, because it starts from his birth and ends at his departure. It's the whole life. It scans a period of about 7 books. 6 or 7, depends. They print it in 2 versions, 2 volumes now, big ones. Sometimes you get a 1 volume, very big. Now that was published probably in the early 80s, probably. However, many years after that, probably 25 years after that, unknown to everybody, except for 1 or 2 devotees, a book manifested. It was being held by one of Prabhupada's disciples. He had not, for some reason, shared it with the greater society of devotees. It was a handwritten diary kept by Srila Prabhupada of his day-to-day affairs in New York in 1966. The Jaladuta diary, which you may have heard of, is available. So is this other one now. The Jaladuta diary was quite famous, and that was available, I believe. Maybe not also, I don't know. But the Jaladuta diary was already known, and in the Jaladuta diary you see, that was also not available when the Lilamrita was compiled. They were both they hadn't been found. 2 diaries that Prabhupada kept. One was his voyage to America. Maybe it was available, but it wasn't utilized properly, I don't know. And the other was his voyage to America in the first September, October, November, first 4 months in America, up to the beginning of January, are in the Jaladuta diary. Prabhupada was keeping a fair amount of records. But then they stopped, and that was it. But Prabhupada continued. It's not that Prabhupada wrote the Jaladuta diary. That's the title given by devotees. He was just keeping a diary. So that was 1965. Then he kept a diary in 1966 also. And that's been now titled The Beginning. Well, Prabhupada didn't write The Beginning. That's devotees have coined that title. And it describes Prabhupada's struggles in New York in the early part of the year. You'll be possibly aware, but maybe surprised to know, that in 1965 in the Jaladuta diary, when Prabhupada was in New York, how many times he was considering going back to India, and even writing to different persons to please fund him or help arrange a ticket for his return to India. Of course, he'd been staying in Butler, Pennsylvania with Sally Agarwal and Gopal Agarwal, who had sponsored his initially as American visa. Sally was very, very close. Probably she really liked Prabhupada. Prabhupada was even trying to get her to move to New York. He was looking at buildings. At one time he thought, this would make a nice restaurant. And he wrote to Sally Agarwal asking if she would come and manage the restaurant. Other times he asked her, it's hopeless here. I may try to go to the other side of America, the West Coast. He asked her if she could finance a trip to the West Coast. If not that, at least help him with finances to get back to India. It was almost like that was his last resort. And sometimes whatever happened, but he changed his mind and stayed in New York. But it was a struggle. It was a real struggle. But we're not going to go on that one, but we're going to move into 1966, January, February, March, like that. 60 years ago from now. I don't know if any of you were in your body, well, kind of in your body, this body. 60 years ago, I don't think so. Anybody's over 60 years of age? Anybody over 60 here? You're over 60, so you must have known about Prabhupada being in New York in those days, huh? Did you meet him? Did you meet him in 1966? Not quite, a little bit later. How old were you in 1966?
1 year old.
Oh, definitely, you would have known everything for sure. 1 year old, you just appeared in the world. And Prabhupada was in New York, unknown, unbeknown, as we say, to pretty much everyone in the world, and even those who knew he was there didn't really care about it. Didn't mean much to them. So it was like basically an unknown factor in 66. Huh? If you were all alive, we're going about our business, completely oblivious to the fact that the greatest event was about to take place in, you can't say in or period of time, but certainly greatest event in the Western world, in the Western hemisphere, in one sense, the greatest event ever, in one sense. Because that would be debated, and you could also see otherwise, but in many ways it's the greatest event because it's really the beginning, planting the seed of pure bhakti. Prabhupada's godbrothers had tried a little bit, but it didn't really grow. There was no fruits practically, somehow or another, whatever reason. But Srila Prabhupada's, he's planting the seeds. And actually, there are letters of Prabhupada where he didn't think that there would be any fruits like we see, that be later maybe, but not then. And he was just hoping to get his books published and distribute a few books, and maybe that would be it, nothing else. He wasn't confident the Westerners would be able to take up this process. I read one letter today, it was on the, I don't know the date, some date, and in February I think, where Prabhupada was saying that how Haridas Thakur had predicted that this Hare Krishna mantra will even be attractive to the birds and the beasts. And he said, Prabhupada said, we're also witnessing here in New York, although these people cannot understand, Prabhupada wrote this, any philosophy, they are somehow or another attracted to the chanting. So that's what is Prabhupada's words. So I'd like to start. I don't know if we have anyone who can put things on the screen. Technisha, Govindaji. So we're going to sing a song, If Krishna Loves. Let me find it first. And it's a little long, but it is very important to understand just now the Constitution, ISKCON Constitution, is just, a book has just been published. Perhaps you've seen it, it's not distributed yet, it just came out last week I think. ISKCON Constitution. Many devotees have been working on it for quite some time, and it's just been, at least it's just been presented by the GBC this week. I don't know if it's completely completed, but anyway, whatever it is. So that's available, and it's a constitution of ISKCON. Now, Prabhupada in 1966 did write a constitution. He wrote a constitution. That constitution That constitution was the foundation of the ISKCON, or the incorporation document. We don't hear much about the corporation document. That was submitted by Prabhupada to the lawyer, and then in conjunction, I think, with Brahmananda or maybe others, they produced the incorporation document, which was fairly similar, but not exactly the same. So the corporation document includes like the study of Sanskrit and the importance of Varna Ashram and things like that. Vegetarian food, the importance of introducing vegetarian food lifestyle. It was a little bit more practical, I'd say, in terms of detail. Practices which achieve the purpose. But we'll sing a song. Now this song, you're familiar with it, but not, obviously, haven't memorized it. There's some talking going on. I don't know who's talking and chatting. Children's okay, but adults, please try to be quiet. So, which one should we sing? We'll try one which is quite easy. Makine Bhagavat Dharma. So you have to find it, I guess, on your whatever you use to find it. Have you got it already? Makine Bhagavat Dharma?
Yeah.
How did you get that so quickly?
It's casting from the phone.
Pardon?
It's projecting from the phone.
I know, but how did you know I was going to... I just said it 10 seconds ago.
She typed it in.
Huh?
She typed it in.
I know, but I never even told you I was going to sing it until 20 seconds ago. I was debating to the last minute which one to sing.
You're listening.
Yeah, but I never mentioned it until about 40 seconds ago. Amazing, you must be reading my mind or something. I've got to be careful what I say around here. Especially what I don't say, because you're reading my mind. And that's very, very dangerous when you're with people who can read your mind, isn't it? Oh my goodness, scary. Isn't it? They know what's going on in your mind. You're trying to put on a good show, but really what's happening inside there is no one's business.
Just be attentive.
Huh?
Just be attentive.
Just be attentive. Thank you for reminding me. So, this of course was 1965, but it sets the scene. Now, to me, when we talk about ISKCON Constitution, I think that's what they've just done, the Constitution book or something. ISKCON Constitution, foundational book. But in one sense, Constitution of ISKCON is, you can describe it in practical terminology or in philosophical directions. Its managerial structure, you can describe it in many ways. But the foundation of the Constitution of ISKCON is not, it includes the practical aspect, but it's based upon a mindset. We use this word sometimes, mindset. Let's say a state of consciousness, to be a little bit more grammatical. State of consciousness. You can have a very nice building, temple, but if the state of consciousness is not particularly good, it doesn't serve much of a purpose. I give an example from a letter I read this morning. Not letter, writing of Prabhupada in his diary. He was staying with Dr. Mishra for a while. Dr. Mishra was a Hatha yoga teacher in New York. He lived in Riverside Terrace or something like that. Riverside Way or something it's called. Drive, Riverside Drive. It's on the side of the river. I think it's the Hudson River, one of them. It's on the riverside. And there he had, quite an opulent area, he had his yoga studio. He was invite Prabhupada to lead kirtan, but he wouldn't let him speak. People were coming. He wouldn't let him speak because Dr. Mishra was a Mayavadi. He quickly found out Prabhupada was not a Mayavadi. So he didn't want him to speak to his audience, otherwise they would become doubtful of Dr. Mishra. But he let him lead kirtan because Mayavadis, everyone likes kirtan more or less. They're not real Mayavadis, but they're American people with an impersonal understanding. So Dr. Mishra, I just read one. Today, Prabhupada said, Dr. Mishra invited me to his studio, but it's a waste of time, Prabhupada said. No point. He didn't say, I did not go. So, it's not just a place, or it's the consciousness or the effect that is there. So temples are not just buildings. ISKCON is not just an association, legal association. It is meant to be the favorable situation to evoke our Krishna consciousness. The temple is not a meeting place only for, materialistically speaking, socializing. It's meant a place to remember Krishna, to put Krishna in the center of our lives. And this is the foundation, to depend on Krishna. So when we read the translation of Markandeya Bhagavat Dharma, we'll see. We'll read this translation first. Perhaps you have it on the board. My dear Lord Krishna, this is a translation of Prabhupada's poem, which was written on September the 17th in Boston, New York. September the 18th, in Boston, New York. He was alone in the cabin of the ship Jaladuta. He just gotten a short visa to stay in America. He knew nobody. He only stepped on the shore of America briefly with Captain Pandya looking around the dock area of Boston. And now he's writing this poem about his inner heart, his realization or his feelings in terms of the mission ahead of him to try to preach. Markandeya Bhagavat Dharma literally means preaching Krishna consciousness in America. Bhagavat Dharma, Markandeya is America. So preaching Bhagavat, the teaching of Krishna in America. So he wrote this poem. And this, in many ways, is the real constitution of ISKCON. Because what is ISKCON constituted of? Oh, we have 1,100 temples. We have 150,000 initiated devotees, or whatever it is. That's one way of looking at it. We have another 2,000 affiliated centers. We have farms. We have restaurants. You could say that's the constitution of ISKCON in one sense. But it's not the real constitution. It's a state of consciousness. So this is it. My dear Lord Krishna, you are so kind upon this useless soul. Every sentence is packed. Every sentence is packed with the most significant words, or let's say, attitudes, consciousness. So kind. Useless soul. I do not know, Prabhupada says. It's not that I know, I did it. I do not know why you have brought me here. Now you can do whatever you like with me. But I guess you have some business here. Meaning business, not like, stock business or something, or trading business in America, dealing in gold or textiles. No, Krishna has some business here. That was why you brought me here. I'm your completely sold out servant. You can do what you like with me, but what is your business? You must have some business here. Please let me know. Otherwise, why would you bring me? If you don't have any business, my Lord, why have you brought me to this terrible place? I don't think most people in the world at least from Asia anyway, would consider New York a terrible place. Most Asians, at least then, especially then, were hankering. They'd do anything they could to get to New York. Anything. Whatever was within their means. If they could get to America, their life was success. That was the mentality anyway. It was a life dream for most people. Probably, you've just been there, not even 24 hours practically, and he's calling it a terrible place. Just walked around for an hour or so, and that was enough to understand what kind of place this is. Most of the population here is covered by the material modes of ignorance and passion. They're absorbed in material life. They think themselves very happy. They're very kind of pride, I suppose you could say. And we're the best, we've got what no one else has got. We're happy, we've got all these things. And we're satisfied. They don't know anything more. That's all they know. One who's covered by the mode of passion and ignorance is satisfied by things of the modes of passion and ignorance. They don't know what it's like to have any other type of pleasure. Absorbed in material life. And therefore they have no taste. As long as one is absorbed in the material world, we can't have a taste for the message of Vasudeva. You can sort of have a bit of a taste, but you can't have a real taste. If you go west, you can't go east at the same time. So, and we heard this morning, we sang this morning, Vishaya Chariya Kabe Shuddha Habiman, Kabe Hama Hairabo Shri Vrindavanam, that as long as we have this traction for the material world, material sense gratification, we can't enter into Vrindavan. You won't get the visa. The visa forms. Are you attached to this? Are you attached to this? Are you attached to this? If you put one tick, sorry, visa refused. Lord Chaitanya is very kind, but if in general we're still attached, then that's what you get. You get what you're attached to. I do not know how they will be able to understand it. Prabhupada's not. He's just depending on Krishna, as simple as that. But I know, Krishna says, Prabhupada says rather, but I know your causeless mercy can make everything possible. No other way. It's your cause. There's no real cause. It's not like they're educated in spiritual science or they practiced sadhana all their lives or they're born in Brahmin families or whatever it is. They're born, we're born, in mode of ignorance and passion. Completely absorbed in the material sense gratification. Or qualification to understand or have a taste for the message of Vasudeva is pretty zero. What's that verse in the Yesham Tvantagatam Papam Jananam Punya Karmam? For one to actually have attraction or determination to practice devotional service, one has to be freed. One has to have acted piously for many lifetimes and be freed from sinful life, be freed. And freed from the duality, seeing beyond duality, in order to have the determination to practice devotion. So what qualification do we have? Next to nil. But I know your causeless mercy can make everything possible because you are the most expert mystic. Mystics can do something, but Krishna is the most expert. Master of all mystics. One book is there. Master of all mystics, Yogeshwar. How will they understand the mellows of devotional service? Prabhupada says. How will they understand it? Oh Lord, I am simply praying for your mercy, so that I will be able to convince them about your message. Prabhupada wants to be the instrument to somehow or other convince people in America about this message of devotional service. Otherwise they won't be able to catch it without that mercy. All living entities have come under the control of the illusory energy by your will. And if you like, by your will, they can also be released from the clutches of illusion. It's a very difficult and touchy subject. Why, people may ask. As Krishna, why are we in this situation? Why did he create us? Okay, you say it's because of our independence, but why did he create us with independence in the first place, which results in our suffering here in this material world? Why, people ask. And you could say justifiably so, but it's a very, one has to understand the eternality factor, really. Without understanding the eternality factor, it does seem, it's like even a kid, it's like time seems to go a different dimension to when you're an adult. Long span of time, just short time. And, maybe the child's got some sickness, it's like the end of the world almost. End of the world. It's just a short period of time in their life. But to them it's the end of the world. And what does it mean? Then it looks like Krishna is like just some or another in the totality of Tatastha Shakti Jivas has just put his hand out, just grabbed a bunch of jivas and thrown them into the material energy. Down you go, whoever you are, suffer. But it's not. It's on the personal side, it's a reciprocation. The jivas who want to try to enjoy separately from Krishna are given this opportunity. But they can't get the opportunity unless Krishna's will is in play. We may desire, it's like a kid may desire, but without the parent's provision, it can't get what it wants. Mommy, I want an ice cream! An ice cream! If I don't get an ice cream, I'll scream. Right? And they do scream. Right? Everyone's experienced. But you can't. It's dinner. We're going to have dinner in half an hour. You can't eat an ice cream now. I want it now! I want it now! And screaming so, all right, have your ice cream, but I told you. I told you not to do that. So without the parent's will, the kid can't get the ice cream. He doesn't have any money. So like that, not that Krishna wants the material world. It's not an alternative to the spiritual world in one sense, any more than a prison house is an alternative to normal lifestyle. It's a place in the material world, of course, it's specifically for criminals. The material world is also for spiritual criminals. Everyone in the world is a spiritual criminal. We've turned against the Lord, we've turned against the government. Therefore, we're ended up in this material world, in various situations in this material world. But the world only exists, Prabhupada says, because of the desire of the living entity. It's not that it has to be there. It's like a prison. If there's no criminals at all, you don't really need a prison, do you? Satya Yuga, there are no prisons. Everyone's in the mode of goodness. If there's no people who are sick, you don't need hospitals, do you? Danista? Where's Danista? Is she here? Danista's here? She was here, maybe she's gone out. But if there are no sick people, there's no need for hospitals. You may have a few doctors just in case, but in principle, there's practice, maybe. But in principle, there's no need for hospitals. No one to go there. Everyone's healthy. But not everyone is healthy, so living entities who choose to enter into this, or let's develop this diseased state of mind, thinking we can be separate from Krishna, are given this material world to live in. And Krishna provides it. Without his will, there won't be a material world. And there'll be nowhere to play out your desires. So it's the platform. And the whole idea is that we give up trying to enjoy in this world. And whatever it takes, it may not take much, but for most people they're quite stubborn. They don't want to let go, so sometimes the suffering, they turn up the fever, you turn up the temperature, If it's not cooking, you have to turn up the temperature more. So in the material world, it's like that. People need to let go or realize this is not the place for me. So Prabhupada says, if you like, they can also be released. Krishna's will has to be there. You can't get in or out of the material world without his will. Not possible. It's like the government puts you in prison, the government lets you out. Or the law enforcement department puts you in and lets you out. You can't just walk into a prison. Okay, where's my cell? I want to live in the prison. You can't. Or you can't just go out of your cell door to the common room and say, okay, I'm leaving now. Only if you're released by the authority. I wish, Prabhupada says, and this is a key line, I wish that you may deliver them. The desire of a pure devotee. Therefore, if you so desire, I wish, but you have to, I can't do it. I wish, my desire is that everyone be delivered. But if you so desire their deliverance, then only will they be able to understand your message. Now, an interesting, I can't say if this is exactly what is the meaning of the line that Prabhupada wrote in Bengali, but that's how it's translated. And if we take it as it is, if you desire their deliverance, okay, we can understand that, then only will they be able to understand your message. So that introduces an interesting feature, which is the deliverance is because they understand your message. That's the method of deliverance. To actually be, it's like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, maybe text 9, I don't know. Who knows that verse? Chapter 4, text 9. Thank you, very good. You got it perfectly correct. Didn't make a single mistake there. What's the verse? 4:9. Yeah, who's saying that? Who said that? Haribol Madam Mopan. He doesn't even have a mobile in his hand. I can't believe it. He said it without a mobile.
No, I just looked for it in the mobile.
Jamakama Chamedyam Evam Yovaji Tattva Tektadeham Punajama Naiti Mamati Sorjana. Prabhupada said this verse one time. He said this is a key verse of Gita. Not usually, but once he did to Sabag Maharaj, I think, in London. One who understands the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities upon quitting this body does not take birth again, but attains my eternal abode. Understanding the message of Godhead, or the nature of Godhead, which is not easy to understand. And so Prabhupada says here that who so does, then only will they be able to understand your message. The understanding of the message is important. The words of Srimad Bhagavatam are your incarnation. And again, the same word comes up. Huh? And if a sober person repeatedly receives it with submissive oral reception, then he will be able to understand your message. So now, the methodology of understanding is given, not just divine mercy, they're related, but the methodology, which is the same thing mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita by Krishna. How Arjuna starts off, Kapanya dosho patasa bhava shamitam dharma samricheta, and so on. He's submitting to Krishna. At the end, Arjuna again reconfirms that now all my doubts are removed. I'm completely willing to act according to your direction. Complete submission. Krishna also says, have you heard this with an attentive mind, meaning submissive mind? Have you heard this message? Then Arjuna says, yes. So there's this submissive oral reception, which is the key here. The message may be there, but we have to hear it with submissive oral reception. Then he will be able to understand. Because Krishna gives the understanding by which they tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dami buddhi yogam tam. That Krishna gives the understanding by which you can come to me. To to those who are devoted. So that devotion here in this regards is submissive all reception to hearing the Bhagavatam. He will become liberated from the influence of the modes of ignorance and passion, and thus all inauspicious things accumulated in the core of the heart will disappear. And then Prabhupada, in his poem itself, incorporates this famous section of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's in the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto. How Krishna cleanses the desires from the heart of the devotee. Srinvatam svakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana. Series of famous verses in the 2nd chapter. If you haven't studied the Bhagavatam, at least study the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto. You could say it contains all the ingredients, both the conclusion of Bhagavatam and the attitude, the means to achieve that conclusion are found in the 2nd chapter, the 1st canto. Most important chapter. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages. The same thing we heard this morning, isn't it? This lolium, or last night, whenever it was. This desire to hear. If we want to understand the conjugal loving relationships between Radha and Krishna, we must eagerly or be eager to hear the teachings of the 6 Goswamis. Through hearing that the eligibility, you could say, is evoked. And by that, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment. Same thing we heard this morning, material enjoyment. We don't want to be cleansed of that desire, but by submissive hearing it will happen. Prabhupada said, Krishna wants us to go back to God more than we do. Cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. And the famous verse, Nashta Pareshu, Badreshu, and so on. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering a service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. As we gave the example of the cup of water yesterday or something. If it's dirty water, you keep pouring clean water, it will eventually become almost clean. But there will always be a fine trace element of contamination in the water. Very little, but fine trace will be there. As long as one's in contact with the material energy. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead who is praised with transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Because it can never go away, it can never be taken back. It's irrevocable. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's passion, modes of passion and ignorance such as lust, desire and hankering disappear from the heart by becoming irrevocably attracted, so to say, or absorbed in hearing and chanting and devotional service or loving service. Then the devotee is established in goodness and he becomes completely happy. Thus established in a mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive, scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. Thus the knot in the heart is pierced, and all the misgivings are cut to pieces. This is also explained in that self-same chapter a little earlier, how Chindanti Kovidas Tasya Konakur Kataratim, that by hearing Yadanujasana Yukta Karma Granta Nibandhanam, Chindanti Kovidas Tasya, how that Karma Granta Nibandhanam, that bondage of karma, that knot, Karma Granta is not, Karma Granta Nibandhanam is cut, Chindanti, by remembering the personality of Godhead. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees the self as master. That can be taken to mean the soul or the Supreme Soul. It's easy to understand the Supreme Soul is the master, but as the self is the master, in other words, we're not this body, the soul is above the mind, intelligence, senses, and so on. He's supposed to be the master. So, in other words, understanding one's material, one's spiritual self, basically. Prabhupada then goes on with his own poem. How will I make them understand this message of Krishna consciousness? How? How? I don't know. I am very unfortunate, a personal appraised self-analysis, we could say. I am very unfortunate, unqualified, and the most fallen. It's a characteristic which isn't just words, it's a characteristic of one's own actual feelings. And we may not think the same way, but Prabhupada does. He's very unfortunate, for various reasons, unqualified, and the most fallen. Therefore I'm seeking your benediction so that I can convince them, for I am powerless to do so on my own. The whole mood is total dependence, humility, and total dependence upon Krishna. Somehow or another, O Lord, you have brought me here to speak about you. Now, my Lord, it is up to you to make me a success or a failure as you like. There's no failure on this path, in one sense, because one is completely, it's like, you know, we go on book distribution, there's no failing. You may not do any books, but there's nothing lost. You've gained everything. Because of your heart, you're trying to deliver that message. There's no failure. There's no need to, there's no failure. The effort alone is success. Make success or failure, as you like, but Prabhupada's talking in terms of whether or not the mission is spread or not. I just play my part and it's up to you. Even if I don't make it, that's up to you. I accept it. O spiritual master of all the worlds, I can simply repeat your message. Every line is so key, so essential line to imbibe. I can simply repeat your message. Not that Prabhupada didn't make up his own message, he's repeating Krishna's message. So if you like, you can make my power of speaking suitable for their understanding, as you wish. Not that I'm very learned, I know how to speak. At any moment our learning can disappear, you can forget everything. Or your ability to speak can be taken away in a moment. We're very proud sometimes of what we know and how we speak. But Krishna can take it away at any moment. Only by your causeless mercy will my words become pure. I'm sure that when this transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel gladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life. Oh Lord, I'm just like a puppet in your hands. So if you have brought me here to dance, this is a famous line, huh? I'm like a puppet in your hands. So if you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance. Make me dance, O Lord. Make me dance as you like. That's how you see the puppet. They have strings and the puppet. There's two types, one up, one down. This is the one up. I'm just like a puppet in your hands. If you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance, O Lord, make me dance as you like. It's freedom, huh? One time, this is there, you can read it in fact. There's one man, his name was David, forgotten. Anyway, he was quite a well-known man. He was the sculptor. You know what sculptor is? What's a sculptor? Some of you may be sculptors or were. Something like this. Yeah, stone. He was a stone sculptor. He used to make, images of people or whatever, some items, flower pots or whatever it is, out of stone for the Queen in her various, homes around the country, I suppose. Palaces, homes. He was personal sculptor to the Queen, to the royalty. David Wine, that was his name. Nice name of Wine. David Wine. I guess it's better than beer. David Beer? No, David Wine. He used to make these sculptures. He was a friend. I think he had some relationship with... There's a whole network of famous people in London who are connected to Krishna consciousness somewhere in there. Not just George Harrison, the Beatles. It was... forgotten their names. In famous people at the time. And they meet together, they kind of had their own underworld. And this David Wine was a part of that underworld, with all these guys. So he he knew a bit about Krishna consciousness. He came to see Prabhupada. Friend of maybe George Harrison or someone invited him. Somebody brought him over to see Prabhupada. The Queen stopped her. And Prabhupada didn't know who he was. He talked to him. Have you seen the Bhagavad Gita? Prabhupada picked up his Bhagavad Gita. He said, yes, I have one. Oh. I said, well, how do you get the Bhagavad Gita? He said, the Queen gave it to me. Queen Elizabeth. And she said to me, it would be so nice if everyone would give the responsibility to Krishna. The Queen said. Take that as you like, but that's what Prabhupada's saying here, more or less. And if you brought me here to dance, make me dance. Well, she's not thinking like that, but, it's the state of freedom where, it's like Prabhupada's example, if you're in the army, you may be shooting people, but you're not held responsible for that as such. You get rewarded. You get in England, they get a Victoria Cross, if you're brave enough. Top reward for, for army man, soldier. You fought, totally surrendered your life like that. So the mood of Prabhupada is given the entire, I'm your puppet. It's your responsibility. If you want me to succeed or fail, that's your responsibility. I'm just surrendered to you. I just act according to your will, that's all. What the result is up to you. I have no devotion, Prabhupada says, nor do I have any knowledge. Of course, we know Prabhupada is the personification of knowledge and devotion, but he feels like that. But I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. I have been designated as Bhaktivedanta. And now, if you like, you can fulfill the real purport of Bhakti Vedanta. What is Bhakti Vedanta? What is Bhakti? Who is Bhakti Vedanta? What is Bhakti Vedanta? Hey, Stephen, don't just say Prabhupada. And what does it mean? Bhakti Vedanta. Excuse me? If you speak louder, you may well be right. Oh, I can't hear. It's like you're very shy. And when devotees are not sure about what they speak very quietly, and you can't know if they're right or wrong or what they're saying. It's up to you if you want to speak loudly, but don't be shy, because even if you're wrong, at least you're the only one who tried.
Vedic scholar.
Pardon? A Vedic scholar?
Yeah.
Vedic scholar. Well, you're on the right path. On the right path. That's a good suggestion. Okay, the young one. Let the old ones may know. They should know anyway.
One who knows the conclusion.
Yeah, Anta is the conclusion. Veda, the conclusion of the Vedas, through the path of bhakti. The conclusion of bhakti. So others may take other paths to try to understand Vedanta. The purpose, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedaishcha sarver amaheva vedyo, Vedanta krit vedavit eva chaham. That by all the Vedas am I to be known. In fact, I'm the goal of the Vedas, the conclusion of the Vedas, and the compiler of them too. So one who understands it through bhakti, through the practice of Bhakti Vedanta, has realized the conclusion of the Vedas through devotion. Is Bhakti Vedanta. Signed, a most unfortunate, insignificant beggar, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, on board ship Jaladuta, Commonwealth Pier, Boston, Massachusetts, USA, 18th of September, 1965. Interesting, huh? Most insignificant, unfortunate beggar. How Prabhupada sees himself. The ship Jaladuta is also an interesting name, how Krishna arranged that ship, huh? Jaladuta means? Pardon? You can say Dikara, yeah. Jala means? Jal. What's it mean? Water. Duta? Duta means messenger. messenger. The messenger, you could say, you could take it graphically speaking, and Prabhupada is the messenger, and the boat is taking him across the water. The message. It's quite a prophetic name of the boat in one sense. That this message, as I said the other day, Prabhupada, he didn't go alone in one sense, he did, but I mean Krishna and his Guru Ray were always with him, but he also was accompanied by Srimad Bhagavatam 200. And if you read this in the beginning diary, how many times Prabhupada is trying to distribute those sets of books in different shops and institutes, and most of the time it was a failure in terms of, them taking the books, let's say. Many times they took and returned them. Most of the time, in fact, they would take, okay, we'll give it a go. Then Prabhupada would have to take them back, they didn't want them. He struggled like anything. But, he went with the Bhagavatam, but Prabhupada said that I didn't take the Bhagavatam with me, the Bhagavatam took me with it. If the Bhagavatam went and brought me along with it. Like a little different. Oh, I'm going on Sankirtan. Oh, Sankirtan's taking me. So we'll sing this song. I think that's the end of the purport of the translation. That's picture. Oh, you can't see it. We're not plugged in. I've got all these pictures here, but you won't see them. Okay. Are we ready? Someone can play harmonium. Who's good on harmonium? Okay, you ready? I'm sure there are many different tunes to this as well. Almost every bhajan has different tunes, and different persons have their different favorites and flavors, and whichever line you're in, and who's your guru, and who's your favorite kirtan leader, and whatever it may be, So you'll find different, so you sing the same tune and somebody sings it differently sometimes. But try to follow if you can. Baro Kripa Kale Krishna Padame Prati Baro Kripa Kale Krishna Adame Prati Kilagiya Nile Eta Korohe Egati Kilagiya Ileta Koro Evekati Hache Kichu Kajata Bhava Eyanu Mane Hache Kichu Kajata Eyanu Kino Ani Pen Eukrastane Nahe Kino Ani Pen Eukrastane Rajastamo Gunera Rajastamo Punera Savai Ashana Vasudeva Kataruchi Nahese Pasana Vasudeva Kataruchi Nahese Pasana Tave Jari Tava Kripa Hoy hoy Tuki Tave Jari Tava Kripa Hoy hoy Tuki Sakali Sambhavoy Tumi se Hotuki Sakali Sambhavoy Tumi se Hotuki Kiva Vebu Jale Tara Buje Sirasa Kiva Ve Jale Buje Sirasa Eta Kripa Kara Prabhu Karini Jabasha Eta Kripa Karini Jabasha Tumhara Chaya Sabha Hai Maya Basha Tumhara Chaya Sabha Hai Maya Basha Tomara Chanasha Maya Parasha Tomara Chanasha Maya Tava Icha Hare Tadira Uda Se toma sabe se toma Shune Jari Thane Baba Dhiraya Shune Jari Thane Baba Shinvatam Sattata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Shinvatam Sattata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Shriyantakto Yabhadrani Vidunoti Srisatam Soya Bhadane Vidunati Srisatam Anastapaye Svabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Nastapaye Svabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamasokhe Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki Bhagavati Tamasokhe Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki Sadharaja Tamo Bhavaha Kamolomadayastaye Daraja Tamo Bhavaha Kamolomadayastaye Cheketa Anavidam Stitam Sabde Prasidati Cheketa Navidam Evam Prasanna Manaso Bhagavati Yogataha Evam Prasanna Manaso Bhagavati Yogataha Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate Oh Tejate Hridayagante Chiryante Sava Samsaya Shriante Shasya Kamani Krishna Vatmanishvare Rajastamo Hatitabe Aive Ishtar Rajastamo Hatitabe Aive Ishtar Hidaya Abadvasate Guchive Taha Hidaya Abadvasate Guchive Taha kore puja kata baro se chahe ki kore puja kata baro se chahe Kurani tinahina kono shakina Kurani tinahina kono shakina Atacha ene chobhavo kata olibare Atacha ene chobhavo kata Yetoma Isha Prabhu Koroe Bare Yetoma Isha Prabhu Koroe Kare Akila jagatu vachana seyama Akila jagatu vachana seyama Akita karibar amata tomar Akita karibar amata tomar Kripa halemo Kata Shura Ave Taba Kripa halemo Kata Shura Ave Dunyata bara sokha dukha je khushi de dukha je khushi de Amiyato Jari Prabhu Amare Nakate Amiyato Jari Prabhu Amare Nakate Anachayo Nachayo Prabhu nachayo te mate, chayo nachayo pao, nachayo te mate, astera putalikata, nachayo te mate, astera putalikata, nachayo te mate, bhakti nai veda nai, nande kutaro, bhakti nai veda nai, name kutaro, bhakti Vedanta name Sata Koro 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 Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, oh Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada. Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So now we'll read the beginning, the diary. It'll take about 4 hours. Are you ready? You're not hungry, are you? You had a massive breakfast this morning of khichdi and poppadoms. No, we won't be. Unfortunately, we won't be able to go into it much. I'd mention two things that just quickly came to mind. One evening, I don't know which evening it was, somewhere in February 1966, Srila Prabhupada was in. By now, he just rented a tiny little room. It's West 74th Street, I think it was, in New York, uptown. Little room, had no bathroom, no kitchen. Prabhupada walked there, there was snow outside, every day it was snowing. Some days Prabhupada would not go out, he couldn't get out the door. He would stay in his room all day and practically starve. Take his bath, he said he took his bath in the sink, whatever that means. Mystic powers, he juiced himself. No, it means he poured the water over him from the sink. I don't know what the people downstairs, whether they got some shower downstairs or not, I don't know. But one time probably he was holding evening programs from time to time in that little apartment. Occasionally 1 or 2 people would come, sometimes nobody. There was one boy called Harvey who was occasionally coming. He was practically the key person in the whole development was Harvey Cohen. He was coming at that time. But one night nobody came at all. Probably start at 7 o'clock. 7:30 like that. Go on as long as they were there practically. That night nobody came at all. Prabhupada writes in his diary. Tonight nobody came, but I still began the kirtan at 7 o'clock and finished at 10:30. On his own, chanting. And he recorded it. Many of those recordings were later produced as records. The most famous one of all was one time when nobody came, and he just gave a summary of the Bhagavad Gita. Quite long, several hours long, I think. And now that's been distributed to millions and billions of people all over the world. It's the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, which Prabhupada recorded alone there in New York, in that little room, in the winter of '66, more or less exactly 60 years ago. So nothing goes in vain. As Guru Maharaj said, we'll preach to the 4 walls. We'll preach to the 4 walls if nobody comes. We'll preach to the sun and the moon. We'll preach in the deserts. So we don't mind. But we'll preach the message of Godhead. Forceful and bold. That's Prabhupada's humble start to this movement. And you read, I think it was in June, Prabhupada writes, for the first time since I arrived in America, I took bath 2 times in a day. He was only taking maximum once a day. There's nowhere to bathe. He had to walk through the snow, the wind, the rain, just to take a bath. Just to cook his meals, he would have to walk several blocks to Dr. Mishra's studio to cook there. Like that. Go shopping in a little corner, superette store. Every day, Prabhupada, in his diary, would write like 10 cents chili powder. 20 cents, soap powder. 15 cents, apples, like that. Every cent that he received, every cent that he spent, he recorded. Every cent. Every letter he wrote, he wrote it down in the diary. Every letter he received, he wrote it in his diary. He was very meticulous like that. We may not realize the value of this self-control. Self-control, monitoring, controlling our whims, and so on. Prabhupada would not spend a penny unless necessary. He didn't have pennies. He rented this little room for $140 down payment, $140 for maybe 2 months. I don't know how much that covered, 3 months maybe, I don't know. You had to make a down payment, including the, when you rent an apartment, you have to pay a month or two in advance plus a down payment. So he borrowed the money some of it off of Harvey, different people, some from the book sales, just to rent that room. He didn't know where his next penny would come from. He would even write down, today, Mr. Bogart donated 50 cents. He would write things like that down. Every cent was recorded in Prabhupada's diary. Very meticulous. Every moment counts. Every moment. He was greatly hopeful for about 4 or 5 months. He was in communication with a Mr. Singhania from India, who was a very rich industrialist from Kanpur. And he was begging him, please, transfer foreign money here so we can buy a building in New York for a temple. He was alone, but he was thinking, if we can get this building, we'll start a temple there. We'll start it alone. We take it for granted. We have temples and deities and money coming in, maybe this and that, so on and so forth. And we get so absorbed, which we should be, in all the rules and regulations of deity worship and whatever. Prabhupada didn't really have any facility for that, but he was planning to start a temple. With whatever Krishna provided. That was his plan. How it would pan out, nobody could say, but it didn't happen at that moment. But then, of course, in July of '66, he, with the help of Mukunda, then Michael Grant, he obtained 26 Second Avenue property, and from there the movement really grew up to then. He started the Sunday Love Feast, by the way. He didn't start it in Second Avenue. He started in the Bowery. After 2 or 3 months in that little room, he left because somebody stole his typewriter. He managed to get a typewriter donated, which he was using for typing up. He had his introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, of course, and he would type these things up. He didn't lose the copies, but he lost his typewriter, lost his recorder, different things were stolen. But then Prabhupada moved on to the Bowery. Harvey Cohen was the one who found that location, the Bowery, introduced him to Paul Murray, and Prabhupada moved in with him there in the Bowery. Paul Murray was a troubled young man. He was only about 17 or 18 years of age, and he was really quite depressed and disturbed. Sometimes he would take LSD and other drugs and kind of become a bit deranged and behave in crazy ways. Prabhupada stayed there for a few months, started the Sunday Love Feast there. He was giving 3 times weekly programs. Started in Sanskrit, he was giving Sanskrit classes. Then he realized it wasn't really particularly effective, so then he just started the Sunday Love Feast as well. And then they moved to 2nd Avenue via Carl Jurgen's apartment for a few days. So now it's time for RT, and remember all of this is a result of the seed that Prabhupada was planted there in his heart by Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj in 22, but then Prabhupada took the seed and planted it there in New York, and consequently fruits grew, and those fruits then went and produced more trees all over the world, which have produced more fruits, and those fruits are supposed to go and produce more trees all over the world. Supposed to. Every town, every village, there should be a tree of bhakti growing. The seed is the bhakti lata bij. You want the tree also, bhakti turu, tree of devotion. here in the Philippines, everywhere. So much to do. But if we develop to whatever extent, at least meditate on this mood of Srila Prabhupada, then everything becomes possible. Everything becomes possible. If we think we're the doer, nothing is possible. Nothing of any value anyway. You have to get into this mood of being the instrument, the totally dependent instrument of the Lord. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Nanda Goswami Maharaj ki